2026 is not the year you explain yourself, it's the year you come home to yourself. For too long, we've been loud about our pain, our plans, our healing, our dreams, hoping someone would validate what we already knew in our bones. But growth doesn't require an audience. Healing doesn't need applause, and becoming your strongest self doesn't happen on a stage. It happens quietly, consistently, and courageously. This year, focus on yourself, not in a selfish way, but in a self-respecting way. And stay silent, not because you're weak, but because you're finally strong enough to let your actions speak. Silence has been misunderstood for too long. We often think that if we're not explaining, defending, or responding, we're avoiding something. But in truth, silence is not avoidance. It's wisdom in action. It's the moment you realize that not every situation deserves your emotional labor, and not every person deserves access to your inner world. When you choose silence, you are choosing to heal without an audience. You stop reopening wounds just to help someone else understand why you're hurting. You stop rehearsing your pain for people who listen with judgment instead of compassion. Silence becomes the space where you finally hear yourself think, feel, and breathe without interruption. In 2026, silence is how you protect your nervous system. It's how you step out of constant reaction mode and into intentional living. Instead of responding immediately, you pause. Instead of explaining your boundaries, you honor them. This pause is powerful. It allows emotions to settle, clarity to rise, and self-trust to deepen. Silence also teaches you discernment. You begin to recognize the difference between people who are curious about your growth and those who are threatened by it. You stop trying to be understood by those who never tried to listen. And in doing so, you reclaim the energy that was once spent on proving your worth. This kind of silence isn't passive, it's active self-respect. It says, I value my peace more than your approval. It says, I am no longer available for conversations that drain me, diminish me, or pull me backward. And slowly, quietly, healing happens, not because you spoke louder, but because you finally chose to listen to yourself. Focus is not about cutting the world off, it's about choosing yourself on purpose. When you focus on yourself, you're making a clear, courageous statement. My time matters, my energy is limited, and my life deserves my full presence. In a world that constantly pulls your attention outward, focus becomes a radical form of self-respect. For years, distraction has been mistaken for connection. We stay busy, reactive, and emotionally available to everyone else, while quietly abandoning our own needs. In 2026, focus means coming back to yourself again and again. It means asking, does this deserve my energy? Growth is not a group project. It's personal, sacred, and often lonely before it becomes visible. When you give everyone access to your plans, your healing, and your next steps, you expose your growth to unnecessary doubt, criticism, and fear. Some people project their limitations onto your future. Others question your choices not because they're concerned, but because your courage reflects what they avoid in themselves. Protecting your growth doesn't make you secretive. It makes you intentional. You learn to share your journey with those who have earned your trust through empathy, consistency, and respect. Everyone else gets distance, not explanations. In 2026, you stop shrinking your becoming to fit someone else's comfort. You allow people to misunderstand you if that's the cost of staying true to yourself. Because real growth doesn't need constant validation. It needs protection, patience, and space. And when your growth finally shows, it won't need permission. It will speak for itself. The most meaningful transformation in your life will never be visible to the public. It won't come with applause, likes, or recognition. Real growth happens quietly, in the moments no one is watching, when you choose restraint over reaction, healing over distraction, and honesty over comfort. Inner work is what you do in private when your old patterns are triggered and you decide not to return to them. It's the conversations you don't engage in, the boundaries you hold even when it feels uncomfortable, and the courage it takes to sit with your emotions instead of numbing them. This kind of work is slow, repetitive, and deeply personal, but it's also life-changing. In 2026, you stop measuring progress by external results alone. You start noticing the subtle shifts, how quickly you recover instead of how deeply you fall, how calmly you respond instead of how loudly you react, how clearly you choose instead of how often you doubt yourself. These quiet victories matter more than visible success. Inner work also means facing yourself without judgment. It's acknowledging your fears, your wounds, and your habits with compassion rather than shame. When you do this off stage without an audience, you give yourself the freedom to be honest. And honesty is where real healing begins. This year, you don't perform your growth, you live it, because what's built in silence becomes unshakable in the world. There comes a moment in growth when you realize that explaining yourself is no longer empowering, it's exhausting. You start to see that not every question is asked with curiosity, and not every challenge is rooted in care. In 2026, you stop carrying the burden of needing to be understood by everyone. For a long time, you may have over-explained because you wanted to be seen as kind, reasonable, or fair. You believed that if you just said the right words, people would finally understand your intentions. But maturity teaches you a different truth. People understand from their level of awareness, not from the clarity of your explanation. Letting go of explanations is an act of freedom. It means trusting your inner compass more than external approval. It means recognizing that your choices don't need a defense when they are aligned with your values. The right people won't interrogate your boundaries, they'll respect them. In 2026, you allow yourself to choose peace over persuasion. You stop justifying your growth, your distance, and your decisions. Silence becomes your answer, not because you lack words, but because you've learned that your energy is sacred. You don't owe the world an explanation. You owe yourself honesty, alignment, and self-trust. When life is loud, your inner voice gets buried. Constant conversations, opinions, reactions, and noise pull you away from your own knowing. In 2026, silence becomes the doorway back to yourself. Not empty silence, but intentional quiet that allows truth to surface. Every time you choose not to react, you create space. And in that space, intuition speaks. You begin to notice what feels heavy instead of forcing yourself to tolerate it. You sense when something is off without needing proof. You recognize alignment not through logic alone, but through how your body responds, calm or tense, open or guarded. Silence also teaches you patience. Instead of rushing to respond, you observe. Instead of explaining, you reflect. This slows your nervous system and sharpens your awareness. You stop confusing urgency with importance, and you start trusting timing instead of pressure. In 2026, intuition becomes your compass. You no longer outsource your decisions to other people's opinions. You listen inward before looking outward. And the more you honor that inner guidance, the clearer it becomes. Silence doesn't disconnect you from the world. It reconnects you to yourself, and that connection changes everything. For a long time, growth may have looked like praise, recognition, or being seen as successful in the eyes of others, but real growth shows up much more quietly. In 2026, you begin to understand that progress is not about how many people clap for you. It's about how safe and steady you feel within yourself. Peace becomes your new metric. You notice that you're no longer anxious about being liked. You don't replay conversations in your head trying to prove your worth. You don't feel the need to explain yourself just to avoid discomfort. These are signs of deep internal growth, far more meaningful than external validation. Approval is unpredictable. It rises and falls based on trends, moods, and expectations that constantly change. Peace, on the other hand, is rooted in alignment. It comes from living in integrity with your values, honoring your boundaries, and trusting yourself even when others don't agree. In 2026, you stop chasing validation and start protecting your calm. You choose environments, conversations, and relationships that support your nervous system instead of draining it. You realize that feeling grounded, clear, and emotionally steady is success. Growth isn't louder, it's calmer. And peace is the proof that you're becoming who you were meant to be. There is a quiet power in not announcing your plans. When you stop talking about what you're going to do and start doing the work instead, something shifts inside you. In 2026, you learn that consistency speaks louder than explanation, and results carry more weight than promises. When you move in silence, you free yourself from external pressure. You're no longer performing for approval or rushing to prove something. You're building at your own pace, guided by discipline, rather than validation. This kind of focus allows your efforts to deepen instead of scatter. Letting results speak also protects your confidence. When plans are shared too early, they become vulnerable to doubt, comparison, and unnecessary opinions. But when you work quietly, you stay connected to your purpose. Your progress becomes rooted in commitment, not reaction. In 2026, you trust the process enough to stay silent. You let your habits, your growth, and your calm presence tell the story. People don't need an explanation. They will feel the difference when they encounter you. You don't need to announce your transformation. Your life will introduce it for you. There is a deep level of confidence that comes from not needing to convince anyone of who you are or where you're going. In 2026 style, NCE becomes a declaration of self-trust. It says, I believe in myself enough to move forward without permission, validation, or constant reassurance. Staying silent doesn't mean you're unsure. It means you're settled. You've done enough inner work to know that not everyone needs to understand your choices for them to be right. You stop arguing with people who are committed to misunderstanding you, and you stop explaining dreams that are still taking shape. Self-trust grows when you honor your instincts without external approval. Each time you choose silence over justification, you reinforce the belief that your inner guidance is enough. You learn that confidence doesn't announce itself. It stands quietly and firmly. In 2026, you no longer chase agreement. You move with intention, grounded in who you are becoming. Silence becomes your strength, not because you're afraid to speak, but because you finally know when words are unnecessary. Staying silent is not withdrawal. It's alignment. And alignment is the strongest form of trust you can have with yourself. Focusing on yourself and staying silent is incomplete without clear boundaries. In 2026, you realize that protecting your time, your emotions, and your energy is not selfish. It is essential for your growth. Boundaries are the invisible walls that safeguard your inner world from unnecessary chaos and interference. Too often, we let people's expectations, opinions, or negativity drain us simply because we feel obligated to respond or explain. But energy spent on defending, convincing, or over-explaining is energy stolen from your progress. Boundaries allow you to conserve that energy for the work that truly matters. Your healing, your focus, your personal growth. Setting boundaries also teaches respect, both for yourself and from others. People quickly learn how to treat you when you clearly define what is acceptable and what is not. Silence paired with boundaries creates a protective space where your mind can think clearly, your heart can heal, and your soul can grow without distraction. In 2026, boundaries are not walls to keep people out. They are tools to keep yourself centered. When you honor them consistently, your life becomes calmer, your decisions sharper, and your presence more powerful. Boundaries are not restrictive. They are liberating. They allow you to focus on what matters most, you. In a world that celebrates speed, reaction, and instant results, choosing silence and focus requires a radical shift, patience. In 2026, patience becomes your secret weapon. It allows you to wait without anxiety, to grow without comparison, and to act without impulsivity. When you are patient, you no longer feel pressured to respond immediately to every situation, comment, or challenge. You understand that timing is just as important as action. The right opportunities, relationships, and results come to those who are willing to stay grounded while the process unfolds. Patience also deepens you. Our self-awareness, as you pause instead of reacting, you notice patterns, triggers, and truths that you might have missed in haste. You learn that life's most profound transformations don't happen overnight. They happen in the quiet, steady accumulation of small, intentional steps. By practicing patience in 2026, you honor the pace of your own growth. You stop forcing outcomes and start trusting the journey. You let life unfold while remaining calm, focused, and aligned with your values. Patience is not passive. It is the art of growing quietly, deliberately, and powerfully. 2026 is your year to come home to yourself. It's the year you stop performing for approval, stop explaining your choices, and stop chasing validation. Silence is not weakness, it is strength. Focus is not selfish, it is self-respect. Boundaries, patience, and trust in yourself become the pillars that hold your growth steady. This is the year you choose quiet consistency over loud performance, inner alignment over outer approval, and peace over pressure. Every action, every choice, every moment spent in stillness builds the strongest version of you. Let this year be your statement without words. Let your life speak for itself. Let the person you become in silence be louder than any explanation you could ever give. 2026 is not about showing the world who you are. It's about becoming so grounded, so powerful, and so aligned that your presence alone tells the story.